Good afternoon. Welcome to this panel about sustainability and ESG. So I am Emmanuel Parmentier, partner at Indefi. We are strategy consultant for the asset management industry, and I am the founder of our ESG advisory practice. So we help GPs and LPs to develop new ESG policies or to conduct ESG due diligences. So the title of this panel is From ESG to Sustainability, the New Revolution. I assume that you all know what ESG stands for. It stands for environmental, social, and governance risks. But what does it mean, sustainability? It's a slightly broader concept involving both the operational risk, the ESG risks, but also the impact of the company on sustainable development, and in particular, the impact of its products and services. So it's much more linked with the business of companies, with the investment thesis, and finally to the performance of the deals. Now, this is not exactly a new concept. I remember discussing this at the last edition of the Private Equity Exchange back in 2019. But what is new is the formidable acceleration of this concept among the private equity and private market sector. Personally, I feared last year that, with the COVID crisis, short-termism would be the new normal, and this would be the end of ESG and sustainability. Fortunately, it did not happen that way, quite the contrary, and we will now discuss with our four panelists why do we see this acceleration and how does it change the way investors, both GPs, LPs, market participants, portfolio companies, change their behavior in a more sustainable way. So let me introduce our panelists. We have two people here in Paris in the studio and two at home. I will begin with my two panelists here. On my left, Émilie Béral, Executive Director, Methods, Innovation, Quality at Vigeo Iris. And Fanny Laitier, here, co-founder of Généo Partenaires. And on your screen, there is also Honor Huyet, Director at Lyric Private Equity. Hi, Honor. And Philippe Duterte, Director of AG2R La Mondiale Gestion d'Actifs and Special Advisor on Sustainable Finance to the Group's Chief Investment Officer. Hello, Philippe. So I will start, before starting, I've been told that you can ask your questions. You can write them on the website, and please do so, and I will ask them to the panelists throughout the panel. So don't hesitate to write your questions, and I do ask them. So let's begin with the first round of questions. I will let all the panelists present themselves and their company. But also, could you please all start by shortly, telling us your thoughts about the impact of the COVID crisis on the way you perceive ESG and the way your clients perceive ESG and sustainability. So maybe we should start with Honor.
Sure. Hi, thank you. My name is Honor Hewitt. I'm a director at Lyric Private Equity, as mentioned, and Lyric is a boutique advisory firm based near Geneva in Switzerland. And we have been around for about 13 years. Basically, our service is that we help our clients to source and invest in private equity funds. So long-term, that's always been small buyout and small secondaries. And then from 2017, we had a focused initiative on impact. This was driven from one of our large family office clients who really wanted some exposure in the space. And, I think that even maybe earlier in other cases, and I think obviously with some of my other panelists, but for us in 2017, this was really the momentum to start focusing in this space. And then we had to derive what is impact? What does impact mean for us as a company? And then what does impact mean for each of our clients, which, as we know, can be very different, especially in the cases of family offices. With that as a starting point, I think that has been an interesting journey. We first wanted to really be more on the impact space than ESG, just to come back to your question as well, not just kind of ticking the boxes on ESG risks, but really focusing on the outcomes. Impact for a long time, I think, until maybe last year, has been a nice to have. In some cases with some families, and we do work with institutions and pension funds too, it's been a nice to have, but not a need to have. And I do feel like that mentality has really changed. The conversations that I've been having with clients kind of from mid last year and continuing now, I have a much more focused importance on impact. And from an ESG reporting perspective, I could say the absolute same. We've been asked more and more to hone our reporting to include ESG and how every fund rates on that ESG, including secondaries, which is often very difficult as they can often be fund of funds. But we really think that COVID has given impact tailwinds in terms of deal flow, in terms of money wanting to go into the sector. And, the impact space is broad, ESG is broad. Where we've really seen a focused interest is in the environment. So maybe I'll stop there because I could talk on, but tell me if you want me to say any more and pass over.
I will in a few minutes. Let's continue with Philippe. Can you explain us your role at AG2R La Mondiale, of course, but also what happened in the past 12 months on ESG at AG2R La Mondiale?
Right. First of all, AG2R La Mondiale, it's difficult to pronounce in English, even in Globish, is a life insurance and pension institution with around 100 billion euros of assets under management. As far as private equity and private debt, private assets are concerned, both these two strategies, first of all, have been identified as alternative sources of yield and returns as in a persistent low interest rate environment. On the other hand, they are part of an investment policy which is at the service of the real economy and the 17 SDGs. Thanks to our investment horizon and the volume of assets that we manage, we are in a position to support initiatives led by our professional organization, the French Federation of Insurers, for example, and of course relay government in support of the French economy, a capacity which is, as you know, largely mobilized in the face of the COVID-19 health crisis. The group also supports the Insurance Caisse des Dépôts Relance Durable France program around and its tourism and healthcare access in particular. We also contribute to the emergence of French tech champions and a French-style NASDAQ around the two components of the initiative born from the TB report. And we have also committed a significant amount of money to the Lac d'Argent Fund, which is, as you know, or as you may know, an initiative led by the French Banque Publique d'Investissement to stabilize the capital of listed French companies and accompany them on the road of digital and ecological transitions. And last year, we have been celebrating 20 years of ESG extension.
Okay, thank you, Philippe. Following by Fanny, can you explain, describe who you are and Généo Partenaires, and how do you consider these ESG topics?
My name is Fanny Letier. I'm a co-founder of Généo Partenaires, which is a management company. Our mission, enshrined in our statutes, is to deliver positive finance. And for us, positive finance is sustainable finance able to reconcile performance and impact. We rely on 4 items. First, the ability to master time. You cannot be sustainable if you don't master time. Second, to deliver human capital, that is to provide both financial and human capital, because it is the people who do the growth. Third, a fair sharing of value, and we give 1/3 of the carried interest of each managed vehicle to a foundation to give our LPs a double dividends, both financial and societal. And fourth, to have a positive impact on society as an employer, ourselves, and through our portfolio company. We manage a first vehicle called Généo Capital Entrepreneur, 220 million under management and already 10 portfolio company. This vehicle was mainly invested by family offices and entrepreneurs. Its characteristic is to be an investment company, evergreen, able to master time. What we've seen during the COVID crisis is really interesting and confirms that for us, impact is the new disruption. Before the crisis, if you were not digital, you could be disrupted. And we see that the resilience of portfolio company depends also on the level of digitalization. And now, if you are not in a position to define the societal demand to which you respond, you can be disrupted and maybe you will not be there tomorrow. So we coach really portfolio company on this matter. Many of our portfolio companies have been remarkably innovative during this crisis, able to deliver some goods and services to ease mental health at work, to also reorganize real estate offices to make sure that working at a distance was practicable because you have equipped offices. Or we also have a company specialized in digitalization of hospital that was also very active in providing some solution to retired people in specialized institutions. All of them, the 7 others companies, have worked on their mission, raison d'être, mission, what you are working for, what you are growing for, the goods and services you provide, with mainly 2 focus, at least in our portfolio, carbon footprint, of course, and also human capital. So this is accelerating. We were very active before the COVID on CSR, of course, because it's our responsibility. Now we are really working on this brand, on this mission, and on the offer of goods and services.
Thank you, Fanny. And finalizing this first round with you, Emily, yes. Can you well, for those who don't know Vigeo Eiris, explain who you are and what is your company, and what have you seen in the past 12 months in terms of ESG in the market?
Yes, so hello everyone. I'm representing Vigeo Eiris, which is a global ESG rating agency that has been operating for more than 30 years now in the market. So ESG is at the core of our activity, and we are serving 2 markets, the issuer market. We have been in this space developing notably the sustainable bond business. We have been pioneering that since 2012. And we are also offering to issuers capacities and solutions to integrate ESG into their risk management. And on the other hand, we are also serving the investor community in terms of ESG data, assessment, analytics, to serve their own strategies in terms of SRI practices. So we have been in this space for a while, and that's true, and I will just leverage on what the other panelists have said, that we have observed a really big acceleration of the integration of ESG factors over the last 2 years, I would say, and the COVID crisis has enabled to identify the extent to which the sustainable finance market was resilient to such kind of crisis. So it has enabled to identify notably the fact that social factors were pretty something that would come on top of the environmental factor that was considered until now quite the new age of finance. And that's true that the COVID crisis has highlighted this kind of factors in the way companies and even sovereigns and investors had to incorporate such kind of things in their own investment. So 2020 has been the year where the sustainable bond market has exploded. It's reaching $1 trillion worldwide. We have also observed an increase in the number of investors that are signing the UN PRI and that are leveraging on a number of UN initiatives, notably on the principle for responsible banking. So I would say that the trend that we had observed is really accelerating on that hand. And we also observe that there is also a shift from soft to hard law. Soft law, so we know that this kind of integration has been historically quite driven by people that were believing in ESG, that were trying to incorporate that more and more into their operation. But we see now that indeed the regulator is coming there and is enabling this kind of integration to accelerate. Last thing is that indeed investors are more and more under the scrutiny of consumers. They are looking for such kind of transparency on the way this is being effectively integrated into the operation. And I would say that from our research, we observe that the financial market is the one that is the most exposed to controversies associated with ESG factor and the extent to which they are in capacity to explain the indirect impact of their investment and their lending practices. So in a nutshell, acceleration, and it's good because when you have been working in this space for more than 20 years, it's good to see that it's moving forward.
Absolutely, I confirm. Most of you have mentioned the term impact investing, impact approach. I would like to hear the LP perspective. So, for instance, with you, Honor, what about the family offices? Does it really appeal to your clients, so families, impact investing, and why?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's hard to talk about family offices as a general kind of group because each family office is very different. So I hesitate to say yes generally, but absolutely, I think that there is a trend moving more towards the impact space, and I think that has a lot to do with the transfer of wealth. That's some that's happened already, and definitely that's coming to the next generation. Because what we see with millennials, if you want, if that's an okay term to use, but both if you're kind of at this generation, if you're the investor, you want more than financial returns, and if you're that workforce, you want more than just money. You want to have some purpose for what you're doing, and purpose is a word that I keep hearing from so many groups that they prefer to impact, because the word impact is used and overused, and there is greenwashing, impact washing. Everyone wants to have impact in their name to help them in some cases, and maybe that's a cynical view, but it definitely helps with the marketing of a fund product right now. So what we like to see also is purpose, so that we really feel that is something that's coming from the investment methodology from the GPs, and I think that really resonates with families. Then you'll have families that have a particular focus on environment and environmental sustainability, where they're very focused on the impact that they want to create, and they know exactly where they want to put their money. And then you have families who are newer to impact investing, and they want help to be able to understand, who are they in this impact spectrum, and how can they make a difference. So I think that it's a range right now, but there's definitely a general trend towards having impact, having purpose, and really seeing that. And I couldn't agree more with Fanny, who said that there's financial returns and there's impact, and what we look for our clients, that those are two that are together in terms of importance, because we think without the financial returns, the impact is not as sustainable. But we really need that impact reporting so that we see that it's the real numbers coming out of what the GP is saying that they're doing.
Maybe just a follow-up question. You say that all GPs now refer to impact and, broadly speaking, to ESG. How do you, distinguish between GPs that really take that into account and integrate these topics in investments from the crowd?
Yeah, it's sometimes it can be tricky. It's also in a range. I mean, if there's a buyout manager who has 1 page on ESG and their 30-page deck, and it's towards the end and they don't talk about it much, my gut feeling is that this is a box-ticking event where they know that this is important to LPs, so they can't. You can't not have an ESG approach these days. But when you really do your diligence on different managers, you get into the weeds of how integrated that is into their investment strategy. And often we look for funds who don't have impact in their title, who are maybe a first fund active in a space. We looked at one that was in waste treatment and water treatment. They didn't have impact reporting yet. They didn't call themselves impact, but what they're doing was inherently impactful from an environmental sustainability perspective. We were very excited about it. So that's a group that we also think, from our perspective, this is someone we can grow with. We can be early investors with other foundations and like-minded LPs, and we can push that forward and help them with, starting to measure their impact and being able to report on it.
Thank you. Maybe turning to Philippe now, from an institutional investor's perspective, do you seek to invest in impact funds? I know that you've been a pioneer in this kind of investment in the past. Can you explain more? What is your approach and what do you seek in terms of within the private market landscape?
Okay. Well, thank you. We're quite proud to count among the pioneers of SRI in France. Earlier, that was a 20 years history and adventure, very positive, very exciting adventure. A policy which has been consistently based on ESG risk and opportunities approach with impact as its new frontier and horizon. Regarding private equity, we have developed a set of due diligence to assess the fund's ESG approach. We also add certain projects in terms of their resonance with the values, our commitments, the initiatives that we support, for example, the French Diversity Charter, and our key priorities, for example, employment. And all these elements constituting what I would call an element of soul, likely to weigh in the balance when the time comes to decide whether to invest or do not invest in a particular fund. The performance of our private assets portfolio is also yearly into its contribution to the vitality of the French economic tissue. We are French institutions, and most of our clients are French. And the positive there's a positive externality that we measure through an annual census of the number of companies that we finance with our private asset portfolio, and the corresponding number of jobs. The territorial dimension of strategy is also embodied by the support of regional projects carried out by management companies based in major French cities. Could mention today, for example. So first, our exposure to private assets embodies one of our group's contributions to SDG number 8, which you all know that number 8 is decent work and economic growth. Absolutely. Thank you, Emmanuel.
Thanks, Philippe. Maybe Fanny, a double question for you. First on the LPs, if you have a comment on how well was received your approach when you met with your clients, also institutional investors or individuals. But also, I would like to hear you on the companies. Your approach. Does it work with the managers of the portfolio companies? How well do they receive your approach?
Thank you. Yes. Well, briefly on LPs, I just would like to fully share what has been said on family offices and the next generation that will take over the family offices. For them, it's important to give a meaning to their investment and to get a sense that they are useful to society, and that the purpose of the family and the purpose of the company will be realized all through their role as an investor. So at Geneo, we have 130 entrepreneurs and family offices that have invested in our first vehicle. And it's a community, we really involved in our positive impact approach, either through the foundation, but also through co-investment or sharing of experience within the Geneo community. And that's something very important for them, beyond the reporting and the written reporting, to be able to live the experience of their investment and to live the experience of being useful to society. Regarding portfolio company, we really observe a change that is to step back really on the purpose of the company. I'll just take an example. A company we really like, we invested, it's our fifth investment called Cardam, and Cardam transform offices to digitalize the offices, to make sure that the performance of the building can be enhanced, also to provide some furniture. And when we invested, we from the start decided that CSR was important and sharing in value is important, and more than 25% of the employee today are shareholder of the company. We also work on diversity, and they appointed women to the executive committee of the company, and we work also on safety at work in the building. Now the work we are doing, and it started a few months ago, is just to say how can we make sure that when Cardam leaves a client, I am sure that the footprint of the building is greener, and I'm sure that employees working in this building or at a distance have better condition of work and have a good quality of work. How can I measure this impact, and am I able to demonstrate to my clients that I serve also this mission? That means a change of focus. It is, CSR is not, that has been said, checking a box. It's really a work that you have to do on your strategy and on your client, because your final client is always the citizen, is always a consumer. So when there is a societal trend, of course time matters, because it can materialize right now. For example, mental health at work, or it can materialize in 10 years. But the direction is clear, and strategically, are you working in the right direction? Are you innovating in the right direction? This is really a strategic matter we work on in the governance of the portfolio company to make sure that the investment we do serve both the growth of the company and also the society. This is why I'll fully share what has been said also before. I do not define Geneo as an impact investing fund. We want to have an impact, but we do not invest only in companies that by nature have a politic impact. Because the old economy, SMEs, mid-caps, and we concentrate on small and mid-caps here, they are the ones that employ people, they are the ones that create jobs. They are not perfect as regards CSR and impact, but the idea is to help them in this transformation is taking point A as it is and taking them to point B, making sure that they do this transformation through impact strategy, which is actually a long-term growth strategy, a sustainable growth strategy.
Okay, maybe a follow-up question. We understand that it adds value after making the deal to improve the company's performance, but does it help you to be more successful in the deal process? I mean, are you selected because of that angle, and is it a plus when you make a deal?
Yes, when we invest, we write what is called a carnet de croissance, a growth roadmap. And this includes a positive impact roadmap. We work on positive impact, on organic growth, on external growth, internationalization, etc. And actually, as of the first letter of interest, even the non-binding letter of interest, we really assess what we think are the current strengths of the company. And we assess the strategy, the business plan, and where we can help, where we see transformation at work, where we see risk also, and opportunities, and what Geneo can provide through our team, our business partners, our AT experts, and also our community of families and entrepreneurs. And the very fact of writing this, of just saying we're not sure, of course, of what we're proposing to you, assessing to you, we need to, look more in depth. But the simple fact of saying we are ready to engage at your side as a minority shareholder to help you implement your growth and help you implement sustainable growth, this is something very differentiating, and this is why we have the possibility to access primary deals with people that have never worked with investment fund, but will look at Geneo as first a sparring partner, creating value and sustainable value.
Thank you, Fanny. Maybe turning to you, Emily, on regulation. You mentioned it as a powerful force for sustainable investment. For those who don't know it yet, there is a deadline, the 10th of March, for a new regulation to be put in place, the SFDR. Could you explain us what it is and what does it mean for investors?
Yeah, maybe before coming to SFDR and leveraging on what has been said, I think we have talked a lot about different terminologies, the need for reporting, the need for information on the strategies that small and mid-cap are operating, and I think that the access to this information is at stake, as well as the capacity we have to speak the same language. SFDR is one of the different vehicles that the European Commission has started to develop in order to enable everyone to have the same kind of wording and language around these topics. So it's a nice move, but we all know that it's a hard move for all of us. Hard move because of the pace, and also hard move because it will touch any actor in the economy. So SFDR is one aspect that will basically touch all of you, so in the financial market, but in parallel to that, there is also the non-financial reporting directive that will target the companies. And this directive has been in place since 2014 for companies. The change that is being operating now aims at incorporating as well the specificities of the SMEs. So I think in that sense, it's also something that you could leverage on in all the different transactions that you are operating, because you will be in capacity, thanks to this directive, to ask for information and for effective linkage between what the companies are providing in terms of ESG factors and the link they make with the financial element. It's one axis that the European Commission is currently working on, and I think will serve the integration and the effective integration of ESG within the investment practices. SFDR, so I guess you know what we are talking about, but the basic principle is that there is a need for financial market participants to disclose the extent to which they are effectively incorporating sustainability risks and adverse impact into their products, the way they integrate these kind of elements also in the governance of their investment practices and their policies. So there it's basically the intent to be transparent on such kind of integration and to be reporting on that. So we come back to what I said in the beginning, need for reporting and transparency, and the objective being, of course, to avoid greenwashing and to start speaking again the same language to serve the customers. So we come to the customer. Each and everyone is looking for such kind of information. It's not organized yet, and this is a way to make it more visible. And the last pillar that is currently being developed by the European Commission, and of course the coherence between all of that is at stake as well, is the EU taxonomy that will enable to have a common vocabulary to speak about what is effectively a sustainable activity. So the limit of this is that it's focused only on environment for now, but we know that it has to be expanded to other activities, notably that have a social impact. But this is also a new instrument that each of you and all the market, I think, will be in capacity to use in the coming years. I think we all have to acknowledge that this is a start and that not everyone will be on the same page in the beginning, that we will have to learn in a systemic way to enable all this new information to come at the where it needs to be, basically, in order to serve this target of better integration.
So, and all these pieces of regulation are right now, it's 2021.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So
yeah.
I hope that you are all prepared to these new deadlines. So we are closely reaching the last part of this discussion. I would like all of you to project yourself in the coming months and years. What are the next challenges in 2021, 22? What would be the new topics and area of interest within sustainability for private market? Emily, you can start.
So I would not say that it's something that is new, but it will come as it has come for climate change. Biodiversity will be the topic of the year, I think, with everything that is happening on the international space on that side. I would also highlight, like I said in the beginning, the fact that social factors are more and more being integrated. There will be the topic of the just transition that will need to be tackled, because a lot of movements are going towards the reduction or the accompaniment to a low carbon economy, but this cannot be just focused on environmental factors. It will necessarily have an impact on workers, on the communities that are being impacted by such kind of transition of industries. And as such, the capacity companies will demonstrate to accompany this transition effectively with proper anticipation in the competencies and the skills they need to accompany this transition. Also, transition in the technologies they will have to integrate is something that I think will be coming. And the last one, I would say, is data. Again, access to data. I would say that all the market consolidation we have seen in the ESG space is focused on that. The capacity, a number of new players will have to incorporate this data and to make this meaningful, notably to link financial performance with ESG factors. I think this is something that will accelerate and on which we will find some results in the coming years.
Fanny, can you go on? What's next for Geneo in 2021 and 22?
I think this crisis has highlighted the importance of human capital and the necessity to also, next to environmental issue, really work on this human employee issue. We want to be at the sides of mid-cap companies, really working on that, being able to set up growth strategies that rely on people and on sustainable strategy. Often they do not work with investment funds. It's not the philosophy of the family. We want to convince them, and we are working with them, that there are ways to reconcile performance and impact. So we are currently raising a second investment fund dedicated to larger mid-cap that will deliver sustainability-linked bonds, just to provide them the incentive for this transformation towards impact. And also we will provide both hybrid debt to avoid dilution, both hybrid debt and an advisory program, a fully integrated advisory program to train CEO, member of the management team, but also all employees on what impact is, on what CSR is, and to trigger this change in the organization, in the way people work, in the way we think the strategy of the company for the long term. So the name of this investment fund will be Généo Solutions d'Avenir, and the idea is to prepare tomorrow, both by financing the investments that are necessary for growth, and also to accelerate this transformation for impact in family businesses.
Okay, to you, Honor, as a conclusion, what do you see next for sustainability? And lastly, with Philippe, because we have a few minutes left.
Okay, sure. So a big focus for us going forward is the circular economy. This is a term, it's not new, but I feel like it has grown from niche to mainstream. The first time I heard it was in 2019 at a BlackRock conference when Ellen MacArthur spoke about her foundation. And it just really resonated with me. I brought it back to our team. It resonated a lot with our group and our clients. And we worked after that with Ellen MacArthur Foundation on their paper on how small financial institutions can take part in the circular economy, which was a very interesting project to do. And then, you know, as we go forward, and now I see it in the headlines. I was reading BBC the other day, and circular economy was in the headlines. So I definitely think, due to the regulation and due to the investor interest, that this will be a big investment in private markets for the coming decade. So we're very interested and excited about that. And then also just two things that on the social side that, you know, I saw in the past week and I thought were pertinent to this conversation. In the Venture Capital Daily, there was a headline last week that said, "Why the ideal entrepreneur may not be young, white, and male." You know, this conversation about how this is changing, I think, is an important one. And also that diversity inclusion is the new normal. So I think all of these things are swirling around together and are exciting to be part of.
Thank you, Honor. And last word, very last, because I'm seeing the organizer that we are almost out. Philippe, as a conclusion, what do you see next for you on ESG topics?
Okay. First of all, in terms of investment teams, biodiversity, of course, and a strong return of the S of ESG around diversity issues or employment issues, for example. In terms of challenges, I see three of them: reporting, hiring, and training. Reporting articulated around reliable and understandable KPIs. Second is training, education of commercial intermediaries network to responsible investment and impact investment. And the third one is hiring qualified and experienced ESG and impact professionals. I see two pitfalls to be avoided. One is misunderstanding about what the client is looking for. The second, be it washing, impact washing, or competence washing. But what fuels my optimism is the dynamic of the academic research in the field of SRI and impact investing, and the place of ESG in university programs. When you look at what the Dauphine House of Finance is doing, or my friends at Ketch Business School, I'm talking about my friend Christophe Revelli in particular. And last but not the least, our youth, all our Gretas, including my young daughter Adele, and our students. That's all for me.
Thank you, Philippe. Thank you, all of you. I think we need to close, and well, thank the organizer, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.